it seems that it's kind of trickled down, the people joining. So I think, maybe we'll take a little minute and get started here.
Awesome.
Yeah, keep putting your information in the chat. This is really helpful for Casey. I'm just going to say a few words and then I'm going to get out of the way and let Casey take over here. Hi, my name is Corey Emmonsberger. I'm a communications manager here at the national office in DC. I'm also a graduate student. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Pittsburgh, so I am here also to learn from Casey. But I'm just going to say a few things about logistics and then talk a little bit about Casey, and then I'll turn it over. So this is part of our first student career week, which we hope for a series of career weeks that focus on other groups of academics. So right now we're doing students. This is solely focused on students. But later on down the line, we hope to do things for non-tenure track, junior career scholars, and maybe even mid-career scholars as well. So it's nice to see a lot of students in here. By no means is this exclusionary. Hopefully, if you're not a graduate student, that there's still something to get out of Casey's presentation, I think. But real ground level stuff. This will run till about 12 o'clock. I think Casey has a presentation planned, and then I think we're going to have some time for Q&A as well at the end. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in chat. There are a couple people from the national office here who will monitor the chat and just make sure that we try to get your questions answered as best we can. This is being recorded. I think I said that earlier, but I'll say it again. We're not totally sure of the distribution schedule, so it won't be sent immediately out. But you should look for it ideally in the coming weeks. Yeah, at the very end, the only thing I have left is that we do have a survey. We do want to improve this week. So in terms of letting us know how we did, just a quick 2-minute survey. I literally timed it. Takes 2 minutes to complete. So that's going to be sent out at the conclusion of this webinar. So if you can, please fill that out. Like I said, try to make it as short as possible, but hopefully it'll give us some good information. So with that, I will introduce our speaker, Casey Stratton, pronouns he, his. He's he got his PhD at the University of West Virginia University in organizational communication. He's assistant professor at Salisbury EDU. Am I saying that right? Salisbury?
Salisbury, yeah.
Salisbury. Also an organizational consultant and learning strategist with over 10 years of professional experience assessing learning needs, designing curricula and training programs, and measuring effective learning. This is a really cool topic. I'm really excited to learn from Casey on this. So yeah, without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Casey.
Hey, that's great. I'm really excited to share some information with you. And by some information, I really mean some information, because as we see with AI, it's going to continue to change. So even as we're doing this recording, probably some of the advice that I provide to you in this might be a bit outdated. That's just the landscape of AI. I do want to draw your attention to the QR code, though. That is a link to the entire presentation that you can download and use to your advantage, whatever you want to do with it. I'm happy to share that with you. This is also just to mention, part of this was presented at NCA in 2023 in the Training and Development Division. Just a quick pitch for the Training and Development Division, because I'm co-chair. We try to do these type of ad hoc sessions as well, helping people develop their professional skills. So if you're interested in joining our division, please come along. So I appreciate the opportunity to have chat available on the side, which means that I can monitor questions as I go throughout. While I might not be addressing your questions right away in the moment, I can at least identify what we're thinking about as I walk through this presentation. I was going to have us do a Menti, but since I had you introduce yourself in the chat, I don't need to do that. I want to quickly talk about some of my presentation strategies as well as we go throughout the session. So first off, you're going to get human advice from me, Casey. I professionally have worked with Indeed Career Services, and I've been in connection with that group there, and I've reviewed and helped over 1,500 job seekers, and I've seen the actual back-end processes that occur with AI and applicant tracking systems, which is why I'm here presenting some of that information for you. In addition to that, I do want to draw your attention to some of the non-human assistants that I'm going to be employing. Because we're talking about AI, I'm going to integrate ChatGPT, a little bit of screenshots just for fun to help us learn, and a concept that I deemed bot voice, it's like photo voice. I'm going to actually help us learn by using abstract images that are generated by ChatGPT just to make this interesting for us. So with that, some of the things that we're going to focus on is really all about applicant tracking systems and what it means for your professional resume, which is much different than a CV. To begin, I want to chat with ChatGPT, and here's my screenshot. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do this. Generate an image of a resume being parsed by an applicant tracking system, demonstrating how some of the information is lost in translation, as we are forced to include some information over others to win the game. Let's see what ChatGPT responds back with. An interesting image here. We have the description of the image. Here is an illustration showing a resume next to a computer screen that displays an applicant tracking system, or ATS for short. It visualizes the contrast between the detailed resume and the simplified, inaccurate representation of the ATS screen, with metaphors like missing or distorted puzzle pieces to represent the information lost in translation. That is a major theme that we're going to be focusing on in this presentation, is whether it's your CV or your resume, a lot of your information is lost in translation as it's being forced into these applicant tracking systems. So I hope this visual demonstration here represents what we're looking at throughout this session. Some of the learning objectives we're going to do together first. I'm going to have us take a look at overall what is AI, a very brief background about the job search process and current systems that are being used to help job seekers find jobs with AI. I'm going to help you very briefly identify basic differences between a resume and a CV. And then I'm also going to expose barriers that are created by these applicant tracking systems. And I'm going to focus on two things specifically: formatting and language. And then overall, I hope to discuss some different strategies to help you overcome some of these applicant tracking barriers, thus giving us the opportunity to, what I say, master the rules to win the game. Because what we're facing right now is a game. It's a game of language. It's a game of formatting. And in order to get noticed by these AI applicant tracking systems, we got to play by the rules. So I hope from these learning objectives, it will capture some interest no matter where you're at in your stage of learning or in your job path. But to begin, I want to quickly provide to you an overview of AI and job searching. So for those of you who don't know what AI is, broadly, I would define it as technologies that learn, create, and analyze large patterns of data. And it really is such a great benefit for employers to be able to use these artificial intelligences to help them get through all of the many different job candidates that are being sent their way. In fact, maybe you are not aware that there are multiple different job functions that we can be using AI for. Here's just a table of some of those different functions. Again, this presentation, it's going to be available to you after, so no need to write everything down. But I do want you to take note of some of the popular examples over on the side of artificial intelligence and some of the awesome functions that you can use these artificial intelligences for. So specifically, I'm imagining that we all have experience with LinkedIn. Well, you're using an algorithm when you're putting your profile out there, and many of the job seekers are trying to identify who the ideal candidate is by that algorithm that they're using. But beyond resumes, beyond job profiles that we submit online, there's also awesome tools that will help you interview, manage your job search with Kanban boards, recruiting tools for those employers who are trying to source large amounts of data and employees, and even more. So here's just a highlight of really this new stream of artificial intelligence that is kind of rocking the world in multiple different contexts. Now, although we have these really cool systems that we can be able to play with to help us perfect our resumes, help us with interviewing, it's really important to have this disclaimer. I personally find that it's very beneficial and valuable to know the why behind some of these AIs and how they work instead of just using them. So that's where I'm going to showcase even some screenshots of what's occurring with your resume as it's being pushed through these applicant tracking systems. But before we do that, I do think it's important to talk about general differences between a CV, an academic CV specifically, and a professional resume. For all you visual learners out here, here's a picture that I generated, ChatGPT, asking it to showcase what is the difference between a resume and a CV, and here's the description that it provides. Here's an abstract image that creatively contrasts the essence of a resume with that of a CV. It juxtaposes the sleek, concise tower representing the resume's focused nature against an expansive, detailed landscape that symbolizes the CV's comprehensive and exhaustive detailing of accomplishments. So from this picture, perhaps you can see, hopefully, that a resume is much shorter and much more succinct than our very long and wonderful academic CVs. Now, here's what I call, well, actually, I enlisted the help of ChatGPT to come up with some punny, memorization strategy. So it's a 3L rule. Thank you, ChatGPT. And we're going to focus on three different things here: length, layout, and language, and how these three rules vary with resumes and then CVs. So first, with the difference of length, a resume, according to research, the ones that are noticed the most are those that are about 650 words long, which is 1 to 2 pages. I think traditionally we've been taught that a resume should be only a page long, but with different formatting requirements for applicant tracking systems nowadays, it's appropriate to go on to 2 pages. Now, if you don't have a lot of expertise and experience, maybe it would be best to just put it into one. But if it's going barely on the second page, it's going to look a lot nicer if you just include it on the 1 page, but you can go up to 2 pages. Now, with the CV, like my ChatGPT image here, your CV can go on for miles, infinite words, endless pages. So it really creates an arduous task of trying to take all of our awesome experiences as academic professionals and shove it into a 2-page resume. Here's another ChatGPT prompt that I offered just to help us learn about the differences a little bit more. For me, ChatGPT, generate a side-by-side abstract image. On the one side, there's a group of people, academics, critically thinking about and debating the content of several sheets of paper on the CV. Obviously, the decisions they are making require intense judgment. On the other side, a person is using a computer system, ATS, which quickly scans and shuffles through various entries at hyperspeed due to the number of entries potentially missing hidden gems. Let me tell you, this is happening all the time. A lot of people that I've worked with including CEOs, who don't even have an academic CV, they have professional resume, they're not getting noticed by these applicant tracking systems because they're not playing the rules and they're missing out on showcasing their hidden gems. So here's the image, kind of visually demonstrating the difference between our human processes, intense scrutiny of the CV, and then the fast nature of applicant tracking systems. I'll let you read to yourself here the description as I grab a quick drink. So the purpose of this session is not to showcase all of the different sections that could be found on a CV. There's other resources that are available to you. I just list some of the different sections that we might find on an academic CV, from education all the way down to graduate courses. Well, here's the maybe bad news. We have to trim all of this information into 4 required sections on the resume: summary, work experience, education, and skills. And to be clear, we actually have to adhere to these 4 main sections, because if we use other sections on our resume, they might not parse correctly. When I say parse, that means the applicant tracking systems, or AI, is grabbing the data from your document and inputting it into fields that have been predefined by an employer. So as an example, if you're putting a header on your resume that says publications, Throughout society, not everybody is publishing. So that's not a common header that employers are going to choose. Therefore, they're not going to select that option. And if you're putting publications on your resume, it's likely not to carry over. Everything has to be confined to these four main sections: summary, work experience, education, and skills. We'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the session as well. Here's another prompt. ChatGPT, generate an abstract image that juxtaposes two realities. The first one is the ability to communicate all accomplishments freely and in an organized manner, offering everyone to see a complex history of life accomplishments, aka your CV. The second reality is the ability to only communicate certain aspects of your identity, controlled mechanistically by pre-filled computer forms that require generalizable identification categories. I hope from this prompt that you're seeing the difference between our very free academic CV and very controlled resume. And here is our lovely abstract picture for you visual learners, along with the description there. Indeed, it is hard, and being a little bit of a critical scholar myself, I love thinking about how our identities are sacrificed by text as we have to squeeze them into these predefined categories. But we do in order to play the game. Our next difference that we're going to talk about is the actual layout. Again, I'm not going to be showcasing ways of laying out your CV in this session, but generally we can say that it has to be pleasant, maybe boring, formatting that allows opportunities for endless edits and additions. For example, I like to have my CV on a Google document that I can continue to update with a live link that I share with everybody, so I'm not continually providing that updated copy of CV. But what about a resume format? I'm going to ask for your participation since we have chat. Go ahead and chat for me now. What have you been told is a great resume format or layout? Go ahead and drop it in the chat, and I'm watching it over here. What have you been told is an excellent resume layout? Or what do you teach, or what have you been taught as far as resume formats go? Nice, clear and easy to understand, pretty and interesting to look at. Okay. Short page, Times New Roman. Start with skills, not objectives, one page. Wait for a few more comments, and then we'll move on. Yeah, a lot of us do forget to include that summary statement at the top, right? Clear experience with headings, great. Okay, so it looks like a lot of us are focusing on the actual content of our resume, making sure that it's very clear and straight and precise, which is good news because it looks like several of us are a little bit familiar with some of the template standards that we need to adhere to make sure that our resumes can parse accurately. I hope that in your classes that you're teaching or participating in, that we're not teaching to use modernistic, cool, catchy, artful designs with pictures, logos, and etc. That type of resume layout is very appropriate if you're handing your resume in paper, with paper, to somebody maybe at a job fair. But when we're thinking about applicant tracking systems, those beautiful resumes create substantial parsing barriers. In fact, I'm going to showcase some screenshots for you in this session so you can see just how dangerous it is to create a beautiful resume. So next ChatGPT prompt, create an abstract side-by-side image that appears almost identical. Each side of the image should showcase very clean, concise formatting that allows readability without crazy designs, much to the chagrin of those like me who prefer creative, colorful expressions. So we are really coming to with the CV and the resume, not looking at fancy designs where it used to be kind of like, hey, let's catch the eye with beautiful colors and images. So here's the image that ChatGPT generated for us. Okay, the third difference is language. For the CV, I'm just going to put the statement here, unmatched expressions, which simply means you have the creativity and freedom to put whatever information you need to on your resume. But for those of you who are not aware of applicant tracking systems, you have to have matched expressions, meaning that theoretically, you have to translate yourself, everything that you have done, to match the specific job posting. This would include your experiences, any duties that you've had in past roles, your skills, accomplishments. Every single resume that you create needs to be very much tailored to that job posting, because with these applicant tracking systems, they are screening and triaging based on the words that you put in there. So the more words that you have, the better off you're going to be. So in some ways, some of us are like, oh gosh, I don't want to sacrifice myself. I want to make sure that I'm still showcasing my creativity. That is a danger. It's one of those things, one of those rules of the games that we have to play. Otherwise, the applicant tracking system might cancel out your resume. Again, I've seen individuals as I've coached them with multiple wonderful, relevant years of experience, but because they're not using the specific language of the job posting, they're getting kicked out. It's as minute as something as leadership versus management. What are the words that that job posting is using? And then how can you transform your resume to meet those different words? Now, golly gee, that probably sounds like a lot of work, right? Well, thankfully, we have several systems that we can use that are available for the most part free to individuals to see just how much work they have to do with their resumes. And then also, it will prompt you and coach you on how to match your words with those job postings. So here's one. Just as an example, in some of these different systems, you would put your resume over on the side, you'd add the job description, and then it will showcase for you a percentage of just how much it matches. Usually these systems as well will provide to you issues that it sees on your resume, whether it's formatting, whether it's that you need to include more quantifiable data. These are smart systems that will help coach you on creating a better resume. Here's another example. JobScan is a popular one. It gives you a match rate so you can see, am I actually an ideal candidate for the job? And you know what? You probably are an ideal candidate for the job. You just have to manipulate your language and think broadly about what you're putting on your resume to then match with that job search. Here's another one. So you see that these systems have commonalities. They always provide to you a match. This one is showing high priority words. Again, some of these are free, some of them cost money. You'll have to do a little bit of research. One of my personal favorites, though, is Resume Worded. Just a personal experience. I inserted my resume. I think I got like a 45% on it. And based on the coaching techniques that it provided to me, I was able to raise it to 89% match and a quality resume. So they really do help us. They coach us on how to create beautifully written and well-matched job resumes. But of course, we also have to ask the question, are they confining us too much if we're trying to adhere so much with our identity to these job postings? One more here that I found interesting was SkillSyncer. It gives you the ability to use what's called a Kanban board to track your different resumes and job postings to match and see what your match rate is. And then, of course, we have our friend ChatGPT. ChatGPT has endless resources that we can use. And one of my favorites that it provides is the ability to speak and write like the profession that you're going into. As if you're an academic, you know, we're involved in these language registers with very specific words and phrases that we use in higher education. It's often difficult to translate some of those words into, for example, a dental hygienist or a salesperson role. ChatGPT will give you the opportunity to say, okay, this is how you can take this word or this phrase and transform it to be appropriate in general for the different jobs that you're applying for. Now, of course, the best rule of thumb is to match specific words on your job resume to the job posting, but it probably would be more strategic to first create a skeletal resume for a specific job industry. So maybe you have one resume for dentistry, one resume for training and development, another one for so on and so forth. And you're creating these skeletal resumes so you're not having to go through all of the different work required to match it to that job posting. And ChatGPT can help you. So to summarize some of the things that we've said thus far, here's another prompt. Generate an image of a person bound by chains of keywords. requiring them to express themselves in ways that sacrifice their authentic identity to meet the demands of bots, looking for specific, standardized human beings matching job requirements. It's the game we're playing now. Here's our image, and there's the description. Take a moment to breathe. I'm going to breathe myself, reflect on some of the different things that we talked about. Specifically, so far, we've talked about the length, layout, and language, very general. I'm now going to get into very specific barriers that we might experience with applicant tracking systems. And along the way, I'll be providing to you some different strategies to beat the bot. To rehash the theme, here's another prompt. Generate an image of a person being disembodied by a computer system representing their identity torn asunder. There we go. So let's just see how our identity, as we're putting it on a resume, is sometimes torn asunder through these applicant tracking systems. I want us to also have this disclaimer, though, although I'm giving you this advice based on the over 1,500 resumes that I've been able to review inside parsing systems, applicant tracking systems and AI, they will continue to become smarter. So parsing will likely improve. That's why the techniques and thoughts that I'll be providing to you in this section are very, very conservative, very, very safe. But before I give those strategies, I do want to visually demonstrate for you what does an original resume look like and what does the parsed version of the resume look like. I'm going to ask you the question, can you spot the difference? So here's an original over on the left side of your screen. And here is the parsed version, meaning the version that the employer would see. So as you see here, there is a lot of information missing that did not carry over from the original resume. So although this individual may have had significant work experience because they're not adhering to some of the strategies that I'll provide to you, this is the result. Let's take a look at another example. Wow, lots of data here. It's difficult to read because it's way too small, by the way. This person should have used bigger font on their resume. But here we go. So you'll see that it's not formatted the same. Look at what it says, work experience, consultant, about me, December 2021. All of this information is getting jumbled there. Here's another example. Beautiful design, but it didn't carry over. Marketing manager, and under the marketing manager description with a keen eye for creativity and efficiency. That's coming from their professional summary. So thus we see significant parsing errors. Here's another one, and perhaps it's my favorite. There we go, there's the parse. Look at this. This person was the president of Oklahoma State University. Well, hey, that's awesome, right? Not so. It just did not parse over very well. And one more example for you, another one of my favorites. Cleaner format, LinkedIn, but look what it did here. Apparently, they received an MA, master's degree in astronomy from Harvard. Ooh, where they really just took a course on astronomy from Harvard Extension School. Okay, so now that I made you a little bit nervous, right? Oh gosh, I'm putting my resume out there. Is it parsing correctly? I'm going to walk you through 30 formatting rules. Again, all of this information is going to be available to you via recording. Then you also have access to this presentation afterwards with the disclaimer that ATS will continue to change. Here's another prompt. Generate an image that showcases a list of formatting rules that must be adhered to ensure ATS parsing success, despite the impending likelihood that many of the rules will change as we improve technology, like you, ChatGPT. There's our beautiful image. So let's get into some resume formatting rules then. I'm going to start broadly with formatting and provide to you the rationale as to why we need to adhere to these rules. And after I provide to you the broad rules of formatting, I'm going to take us through the main sections of the resume, including summary, work experience, education, and then skills. So first, general rules. First, 0.5 to 1 inch margins. That has been shown to work well with applicant tracking systems. If there's too much white space on your resume, applicant tracking systems and AI might think that there's no data there and just move on to the next thing. So that's why we don't want to include too much white space on our documents. Left justification throughout. That means left for your name. And again, these are conservative rules. Some AI will be a little bit more intelligent. Name to the left, all your headers to the left, bullet points to the left, everything shoved to the left. The reason why is because applicant tracking systems read from left to right. So if you have stuff over on the right side, it might see that significant white space and say, oh, nothing here, folks. Let's move on to the next thing, and it won't take that data over for you. Next, make sure we're not using any tables or columns. Somebody mentioned that in the chat. I'm glad that some of you are familiar with this already. You saw that this was a significant issue in those examples that I provided to you, where it's reading from left to right. So it's quite literally grabbing the data from left to right and creating very incoherent stories. So that also includes making sure that we don't have hidden tables. I'm an instructional designer by trade, and I love creating tables with Microsoft Word that you can actually see. Even hidden tables will impact the applicant tracking systems. Bullet points are important to use. Use bullet points in your work experience section only, however. Do not use them in your summary section. If in your summary section at the very top, the applicant tracking system sees a bullet point, sometimes it will think that you're jumping into your work experience section and delete out that information up top. So bullet points only in the work experience section, and choose a very commonplace bullet point like the one you see on the screen. No pictures, icons, or background images. They skew the data. They're not being parsed over anyway. Sure, it makes it look pretty if you have a physical document, but it's better to remove those. So even systems like LinkedIn, I've noticed, have the different icons. I think that would be appropriate if you were submitting or applying for a job within LinkedIn, because that's specific to their system. But if you're publishing your resume out there for other applicant tracking systems, no using icons. Black text blurring right on white background. That's the easiest readability for applicant tracking systems. I have on my resume, though, created my name up top in dark blue. Just make sure that you're using dark fonts on white backgrounds. The best type of fonts that are most readable for applicant tracking systems, sans serif, very typical fonts like Arial, 11 to 12 point font is your best bet. Here's a hidden rule that a lot of people do not know about. Are you ready for this? And that is no embedding URLs or hyperlinks. Oftentimes we include our LinkedIn portfolio or we use our website data. You're welcome to include that URL, but do not embed it, meaning do not make it a live link or a hyperlink. Oftentimes when applicant tracking systems see a live link within the resume, it thinks that it's phishing or trying to grab information, scamming attempts. So it's best to leave those off. Just straight text if you're going to include the URL. Here's a very important formatting standard to be aware of, our headers. When you are creating your resume, it is imperative that you use these generic headers, specifically like this: summary, work experience, education, and skills, in this order. In most applicant tracking systems, what it's going to do is grab your data and rearrange your data in this order: summary, work experience, education, and skills. So it's best to format your resume in that way as well. With the headers, what it's doing is the applicant tracking system is screening your data, and when it sees that header, it will then capture that data and plug it into the correct field within the applicant tracking system. So it's very important that we use these specific words: summary, work experience, not professional experience, work experience, education. Don't put education and certifications and training. No, education and skills. So that's a lot of formatting general rules. Here's a general tip that I would suggest that you think about. In Microsoft Word on Google Documents, you have the ability to check accessibility for these documents, aka a screen reader. Uh, if your resume can successfully pass that screen reader, it's likely that it will successfully pass parsing systems. And while I'm providing to you the background and the context of all of these different formatting rules, there are ATS-friendly, and I'm going to put in question marks, templates out there like resume.com that claim to work well with applicant tracking systems. You can start there and use them, but it's also helpful to understand the weeds that I'm getting us into to make sure that we're submitting successful documents online. Okay, next we're going to get into the rules of our summary statement. So the summary statement, very quick for those of you who do not know what it is on a resume, it goes at the very top and it's a 2 to 3 sentence elevator pitch about you. According to eye tracking research that's been done, because it's at the top and because it provides a holistic overview of you, it is the most seen spot on the resume. In fact, a lot of recruiters will triage resumes and decide to look at some over others because of that summary information that you include. So research online, excellent summary statements. I'll provide you an example in just a minute. As a review, make sure that you use the word summary for the header. It's 2 to 3 lines long. No bullet points, as already mentioned, as it sometimes pops that information down into the work experience section. It's great to include your years of experience. Oftentimes, applicant tracking systems are looking for that high-level data. So as an example, strategic learning and development specialist with over 10 years of experience, yada, yada, yada. So you'd actually put the number 10, 10, in the summary statement, and that data is grabbed by applicant tracking systems. Here's the hidden gem for you. Avoid using these words in your summary statement: work experience, education, and skills. The reason why is because if it's reading that word, guess what it's going to do? It's going to pop down and delete out the rest of your summary statement and focus on now your work experience. In fact, this was an odd moment that I saw on an HR professional's resume. They used the word training and development and education. And because they use education, it deleted out all of their work experience and popped down to their education section. So we have to be very careful with the words. A couple of fun tips to make sure your summary statement stands out, by the way. Use keywords, like we mentioned, from the job posting, and show quantifiable data. That will really help you stand out. So what does this formatting for a summary statement look like? Here's a snippet from a hypothetical resume. You see here that we're using a very basic header for the summary, very basic font. And I'm going to piece these different sections together for you later to be able to see what the entire resume is going to look like. Let's move on to the next section of our resume, which is the work experience section. Again, use the header, work experience. And then you want to use the following information in this order. First, a generic title. What do I mean by generic title? Don't put something like customer enthusiast specialist, right? Stick to generic titles like customer service representative or customer service associate. That's where you can utilize ChatGPT and ask it, what are some common ways to say this type of position? And it will give to you the most common roles and titles that are used. Do that so you can get noticed, because these applicant tracking systems are screening for the appropriate titles. As another example, that might mean if you are a personal business owner, don't put CEO, because that means it's going to feed you a bunch of CEO positions, or it's going to flag for the recruiter that you're an appropriate candidate for a CEO position, even though you may not be. So there's different types of organizations, and roles are not equivalent across those organizations. So you might have to change your role title and identity a little bit. Underneath the generic title, you would put the organization along with your location. And then underneath that, you'd have the dates. When you're putting your dates, you want to spell out the entire month. So November, not Nov, not 11 November. That's the best way that the applicant tracking systems are able to capture that information and correctly tally for the recruiter how long you've been at that place of employment. And then use bullet points about 2 lines in length. And another tip, as already mentioned, use those keywords and show that quantifiable data. So here is an example of what that would look like. You'll notice that the role and title is on a separate line in bold, followed by the organization, city, state, if you're in the US, and then month, year to present. The reason why it's on separate lines like that is it's because it's demonstrating for the applicant tracking system discrete, unique data. So it's going to capture that, put it into the correct field. Some applicant tracking systems will read it correctly if it's all on one line, but it's best conservatively to include on 3 separate lines. That's why I showcased for you at the very beginning why it's appropriate to go on to 2 pages to meet some of these different formatting requirements. Education, perhaps what we're all interested in now. So in the education, you want to include the following basic information on one line: the degree, no abbreviations, so no MA for master's. PhD is fine. BA should be bachelor's. Spell out the degree. You can put it in parentheses as well, the abbreviation, and then what you received your degree for. On your resume, some applicant tracking systems will not parse over data that says major, communication, minor, marketing. In order to get that through the system, you would want to put bachelor's degree in communication and marketing. And then when you're in the job interview, you can explain communication major, marketing minor. That's just one of those strategies to get that information in there. Otherwise, it might just show a bachelor's degree, but not indicate, well, what did you receive that in? So don't separate it by a major or minor. You have your institution and location, and then month and year of graduation. Even if you're graduating soon, you can still put that future date there. This is all that belongs in the education section, which means that we do not include coursework, projects, even your GPA, research publications. Here's a little bit of rationale behind this. Remember that these corporations and businesses who are creating these applicant tracking systems, they're trying to reach a wide array of customers and clients who manage diverse businesses. Not everybody throughout the world will want to report their GPA. So if that's a requirement in the applicant tracking system, then it's going to cause issues for people who don't want to report that. So that's where we just stick with pretty general information as far as the education goes. Likewise, not everybody has publications, not everybody has projects and coursework. So where do you put that information? You can include that information in your summary statement if you want to highlight some awesome projects that you've been involved with or research, or even in your work experience section. So you could say, presented 25 research presentations at national conferences showcasing the unique ability to X, Y, and Z. So you can develop bullet points that speak to your academic experience without inserting them in the education section. And we're doing that to make sure that that information carries over nicely. And then, of course, we have the cover letter as well. So how are you feeling now? ChatGPT generate an image of a student or a learner feeling distraught because all of their wonderful education experiences that they would normally list on a CV will not parse within an applicant tracking system because it only is looking for general categories. The student or learner or workshop participant is weeping because they are standardized with the rest of society who may not have publication, conference presentations, outstanding GPAs, and so on. There you go. There's our image. With that weird, by the way, look at that language. It's not even spelling all those words right. ChatGPT image creation is a little strange. Here's the education, what that would look like. And then as far as the anticipated go, you could put anticipated, but it's also just appropriate to put the year. But if you're graduating this year, to put month, year, and then in parentheses, put anticipated. Don't put anticipated before the month and the year. Okay, and then last, our skills section. This is where you would list 6 to 10 technical, really focus on the technical skills that relate to the job posting, and it would simply look like this. And so, my friends, what does this look like in its entirety? This would be what the format would look like. You'll have access to this later if you want to download the presentation. Now, I do have just a couple of other strategies that I want to go through featuring our friend ChatGPT. This will take about maybe 3 minutes. I'm not going to go through these in depth because I do want to open up the opportunity for questions. But I decided to ask ChatGPT myself. Maybe ChatGPT should tell me what ChatGPT can do to help me improve my resume. And I asked for it to create a list of 20 different ideas. I'm going to showcase 18 of these ideas on the screen. I am not going to read them out loud to you. You can access them later in the presentation, or you can chat with ChatGPT on your own to ask. But I do want to highlight just some of my reactions. In the green, you'll see, oh, yes, that is a great strategy. Thank you, ChatGPT, which is keyword optimization, for example. So asking ChatGPT, hey, here's my resume, and here's the job posting. Identify for me, what are the keywords? Also, you could ask sharing, you could share, again, that job posting with ChatGPT. I'm a little weary about that advice on modern resume formats because I'm not sure that ChatGPT is up to par where it needs to be, aside from generic information, like no columns, no formatting. I don't know if it's going to give you great details there. Quantifying your achievements is often difficult to brainstorm. ChatGPT is your friend there. And then out of all this stuff, I liked the adjust the phrasing of your experiences. And here, language to be more action oriented. I like that it could also help you do multiple versions of your resume. And I'm a little weary about it performing a check to ensure that the format is up to where it needs to be. Thank you, ChatGPT. You're welcome, Casey. If you have any other questions or need assistance, feel free to ask. Good luck with your resume enhancement and job search. So I now open it up to all of you. What questions do you have that I can answer in the next 9-ish minutes? And I'm going to monitor my chat here. Ooh, where should we look for job postings? That's a great question. So you do not want to look at a single system. So do not just look at LinkedIn. Do not just look at Indeed. Remember that different companies pay for different services. And so some companies will only be found on certain job search sites. So it's beneficial to dabble in multiple different job search sites. One strategy that I personally like to use, and I tell job seekers, is to use Google to search for jobs because it's grabbing all of the different jobs from all of the different job searching platforms out there. And you can narrow your search as well as you're looking on Google for location. Maybe you use not and then you insert a keyword there. Or you could put in parentheses, I'm looking for this role or this role or this role. So there's lots of cool filtering options that you can do through Google. I think it's underemphasized. But if you don't use Google, make sure that you're varying the different job platforms. And that also means that, remember, a lot of these job platforms like Indeed, LinkedIn, they have the opportunity for you to post your profile. Keep in mind that these job boards are scanning profiles continuously, not even for people who are applying for jobs. They're trying to identify best candidates for the position, which is great for recruiters, which means that you might need to strategically decide maybe on LinkedIn, you're publishing one identity, a content writer. On another system, maybe you're highlighting another identity, training and development specialist. You kind of have to make these decisions as you're going into the job search. More clarification on the URL inclusion. So you are welcome to type out your LinkedIn URL or your ORCID ID. Just make sure that you don't press enter. As soon as it becomes blue, that means we can click on it, which means we'd be led to it. It's that clicking function or the hyperlink that causes problems with an applicant tracking system. So just make sure it's simplistic text. Did that address your question okay? Okay, awesome, thank you. Other questions? LinkedIn pushes unrelated jobs to me. Does that mean the identity I put there has failed their screening system? I don't know if failed would be the right word. I don't like the word failed. Maybe it just means that it's seen a potential for you in a different field or a different position. But if it's something that you're not wanting, you might want to take a look at that language that you're using within LinkedIn and strategize what words you're using. So as an example, I decided to do a little bit of an experiment on my own LinkedIn profile. I changed all of the content, including my header, my summary, my job bullet points, to be in line with a career coach type position. Lo and behold, what did I get? A lot of recommendations for job coach positions. So indeed, if you're receiving random, job suggestions on different job boards, it probably is because it's trying to match your language and your language isn't where it needs to be. Best advice for grad students moving to industry with more skills gained from degree than work experience? That's a great question. So I think it's important to keep in mind that your experience as a graduate student or an undergraduate student is professional experience. And I've coached, and it's also a best practice to include under your work experience, communication student, organization, your university, and then wherever. And then what you're doing here is you're showcasing that you do indeed have professional experience and you're creating bullet points that speak to the projects that you've been able to be involved with in classes, mentoring, data you've collected, research, whatever. You can talk about those transferable skills within the bullet points. I think that's a hidden gem that a lot of people are not aware of or don't think about because we have to get that information into these applicant tracking systems somehow. So doing that and treating it as a work experience is a fantastic idea because it is professional experience. It is work experience. But make sure that you're thinking about, okay, I did this research publication with my fellow professor. That showcases what skill on this job posting. Collaboration. So I would create a bullet point that says collaborated with not senior faculty, just say peer. So we're using a different language register when we're communicating our bullet points. Any other questions? I'm looking over here in the chat. Okay, now to conclude, again, the QR code is right there at your convenience. But be aware, beyond the information that I provided to you in this session, AI is also very intelligent and it provides a lot of different resources and tools that you can use to your advantage. There's lots of also great programs that you can take a look at that teach you how to transform your CV into academic job resumes. Ask ChatGPT how to do it as well, and perhaps it will provide you some interesting suggestions. But let's see, I see a couple of other questions. Should you include references outside of academia if applying to non-academic jobs? For resumes, we actually do not want to include references at all. We don't even need to include the phrase references available upon request. The reason why is because we're publishing our information out there on the web. We don't want that personal information to be seen by anybody. If the job recruiter or the employer wants references, they'll be asking for that specifically in the job application. Now, of course, I'm saying generalizable rules. You're probably going to come across one random job posting that will say, hey, put references in your resume. That's beyond our scope there. Is it true that we should not only create a ATS-friendly resume, but also if pulled by a human, it should also be visually pleasant? Absolutely. I think that's great. Although we talked about basic formatting strategies in the session, as a visual person, I kind of go crazy when I look at my boring resume. I have a separate visually appealing resume where if I'm communicating interpersonally with someone, maybe at a job fair, or if I'm reaching out to somebody directly at a department, an HR representative, for example, I send them my beautiful resume so it can capture their eye. But if at any time you're applying for online in any format, you're probably using an applicant tracking system and therefore stay away from that beautiful formatting. And then as far as visual tips go, don't think we have time to showcase that, but There are some really nice templates that are developed within Microsoft Word. Canva is also a great AI tool you could play with to develop some really interesting um, designs.
That's most of the questions. I'd like to just join together in a round of virtual applause for Casey. This was an excellent presentation, very engaging, very visually engaging. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I think you had a QR code. I don't know if right now I see the ChatGPT screen, so I want to make sure people.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Um,
There's the QR code again.
there it is. Yeah. So if you want to,
Awesome.
I think that's the presentation, right?
Yep, that's the entire presentation. It also includes the screenshot of that beautifully designed for applicant tracking system resume.
Awesome. Thank you again. And on Friday, I just want to plug, we do have our last event. It will be lessons from NCA's dissertation awardees. So if you or anyone you know is working towards completing a dissertation, we're going to have three people who won a previous award, the Gerald R. Miller Doctoral Dissertation Award. So they're going to be getting together, talking about dissertations. So check that out. That's our final event of Career Week. But otherwise, there will be a survey forthcoming. Please take it. It's like 2 minutes. We just want to make sure we can improve on Career Week. So let us know the good, the bad. And that's it on my end. So thank you again, Casey.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful presentation.
Awesome. You all have a wonderful day. And you'll notice in the chat that our AI Zoom friend summarized the meeting for us.
Exactly. So if you want to put back, I think there's a transcript there. So for anyone who wanted to follow along.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, wow. A full summary. Kind of interested to click on it to see what it says. Let's see if we get it right.
All right. Thanks,
Well, y'all
y'all.
have a wonderful day. See ya.
See ya.